Good morning, everyone. So today I wanted to talk about what is faith. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because as a Christian, I feel like there's not enough guidance in the churches, right? And so what ends up happening is you have these people who are surface level Christians. You have these people who come into church and they hear all these things about faith and devotion to God and stuff like that, and they have absolutely no idea what it means. So all they hear is, you must be a slave to this religion, you must be a slave to their ideologies, and you can't think for yourself. And that's just a horrible fucking way to think about it, because you can't know God unless you learn to think for yourself, unless you learn to explore on your own, unless you learn to question your own ideas and concepts and stuff like that. But one of the disservices I feel like the Christian church does is they don't adequately describe faith. And the thing is that I think that faith is really something you can describe in a sermon. Or even less than that, or you can incorporate it into every sermon, because it's such a pervasive and important process in your life. And what do I mean by that? Well, faith is a process. It's a journey. It's like this creative endeavor, and the end result is you as your perfect self. Whatever your perfect self is, that's what faith is trying to create in you through the process or the journey of life. And in the end, your end goal is when you get to the end of your life, you want to be justified in what you've done in your life to be remembered as a good person. And what I mean by this is, I've been to plenty of funerals in my life. I recently went to a couple this year, which is a little difficult to speak about because they were really important people to me. The first one was my grandmother. And, she's just a really good woman. When I think of a good woman, I think of somebody who, takes care of the house and cooks for her husband and takes care of the kids. Just, the perfect mother. I have a vision of my grandmother. She's an amazing woman. Now, she was not perfect. No. She was not perfect. She was not the perfect mother. But, as a granddaughter, looking at her in her later years as, she's so loving and compassionate to her grandkids and all this stuff, and you don't get to see the flaws of her motherhood and stuff, you think, you have this impression of what was left over. And what was left over was absolutely fucking amazing. She got to the end of that process, and she ended up being an example by which I could live by because of who she became in her life. And she had a stroke at the end of her life, and she stuck around. She had that choice to make as to whether or not she was going to bear the suffering and continue forward, and she did for a long time. And my dad's convinced that part of the reason was so that she could see us, and she could make sure that my grandfather had somebody with him when he transitioned. She's a really good woman. And so, you want to be the type of person that when people remember you, it brings tears to their eyes, because the impression you've left on them is so amazing. And, you want your grandchildren to sit there and cry at your funeral because they miss you. My other grandmother dies, my sister's just gonna be like, fuck yeah, I don't have to deal with that bitch anymore. You don't want to be that, and it's not that woman's completely horrifying, she has transformed too in her own ways, and, I think she's become a better person as well. But, in the end, when you want people to remember you, do you want to have nobody at your funeral, or do you want a bunch of family there who keeps talking about how fucking amazing you are, and how great of a guy you are? My, uncle recently died as well, and I mean, he met my aunt when she was pregnant with another man's child, and I don't know why, but he felt like he loved her enough to take on that burden. He raised her daughter, and they had one of their own, and he was a really good man, and everybody who spoke at his funeral described him as somebody who was just always willing to, like, lend a helping hand, and just always had in a good mood and stuff like that, and literally described as Tim the Toolman Taylor living next door. Just absolutely fucking amazing person, and it hurts so much to have him gone, even though, like, I didn't spend a lot of time with him. Just knowing that that man is out of the world is just hurtful. And so, if that's the goal in life, is to lead a good example for people, then, faith is the process by which you do that. It takes a lot to become somebody like that. It takes this constant and slow chipping away of what you were, so that you can become something beautiful and admired. It's like the way that the Christians explain it. Faith is like this thing, right? It's this finite thing that you have to find. And that's so harmful. It's just so foolish to think that faith is like this thing that you find, or this finite concept or idea. And that's just not the right way to look at it in any way, shape, or form. Because what faith really is action. Faith is, your own actions that build who you are. And you experience all these trials and tribulations, just the fire of life that burns away the things that are gonna get you killed, that it burns away the things that are not useful to you. It's like if you're overly arrogant, for instance, and you move through life believing that's okay, there's going to come a time, if you have faith and you choose to continue forward, where you are going to be knocked on your fucking ass for your arrogance, and you are going to have to learn a lesson because of it. And that's part of the process of faith. And the thing with it is, the Christians don't talk about this, and this is really, I think, harmful as well, is when you talk about the trials and tribulations of the world. It is so bad right now. And then the only refuge that Christians offer, they're like, have faith in God, have faith in God. And then they don't explain how to get there. And so you're left in the rubble of this society that allows for our rights to be imposed upon and infringed upon and things like that. And there are times when you just want to, give up and die. Because things are so bad, there's so much suffering in the world, and you just want to find your nirvana and give up, right? You just want to opt out and just be like, fuck this shit, life isn't worth living. But that's the opposite of faith. That sort of thought process does not allow you to persist. It does not allow you to survive. And it doesn't allow your life to become justified in this world. It doesn't allow you to become that amazing person, because opting out just means saying fuck you to the rest of the world. You caused all this suffering, go fuck yourself. There's nothing redeeming about this place. But faith says no, that's not true. Faith is your choice to push forward in the face of adversity. Faith is when you come up against a challenge that's absolutely impossible for you to overcome, and you fucking do it anyway. the man I'm with right now, because of things that his ex did, he's been in hell for the last 2 years straight. Probably longer than that. I think the man's been in hell most of his life. And what is so astounding to me is that he pushes forward. He has something driving him inside of himself, and he keeps making the choice every day, even though he only gets like an hour's sleep, to get up and work his job, and then come home and maybe get another hour, 30 minutes of sleep, and then get up and go work a second job, and do this week in and week out over and over and over and over again, with very little rest in between. And he just keeps going, and he just has to keep making that decision, because he knows it's important. He's decided that it is important. And so when I talk about this process, it's because I see it working in my own life every single day. You know, and it's this choice that everybody makes. This faith. Faith is a choice, right? It's an action, it's a choice, it's a process, it's a journey. And, you know, everybody makes it at a certain point. We all have at least a little bit of faith. Every time we move our feet forward towards a new goal, whatever that goal might be. You know, there's faith in believing that there's still ground beneath your feet that you can walk upon to move yourself forward. There's faith in the concept that you can actually accomplish something. Even if it's minor, even if it's minute. Faith is still that, it's like the back of the head knowledge that you can actually accomplish something if you make that decision, which you can make that decision. And it's a long process, but in the end, you can come out far more than what you were. As you remove away the chaff of what made you so imperfect, you become more than what you were. You lose something of yourself, but what you gain is so much more important. You gain a real structure to your character that can be remembered forever. Faith is like, it's, I don't want to say completely reckless, but it is somewhat of a reckless disregard for the limitations that the world puts on you. When faith comes across an obstacle, even if you're not strong enough, even if you're not smart enough, faith is what will allow you to persist and continue on through that obstacle, even if you are ill-equipped to handle it, even if you think you fucking can't. When you get to the other side, maybe you're damaged, maybe you're on fucking fire, and maybe you have to spend some time sitting there putting out the flames. Maybe you have to sit there and call for help, but at the end of the day, faith is still going to allow you to persist, because the alternative would be to sit down and die. Not facing your obstacles is the equivalent of sitting down and dying. And you know, it's all to strive to become a better person. That's what faith is. It's a striving to become more than what you are. You know, like a beautiful piece of art. Like, that's how you should view your soul, as a beautiful, creative piece of art that you continuously work on. I mean, once you experience faith, you can't escape it, because it's a process, it's a memory. It's something that you go through. You don't just view it from the outside. It's not something that is just simply imparted upon you. You go through faith. And you go through hell. And when you do that, when you make those choices to persist, continue on, when you push through, those experiences become encoded upon yourself. And not just in your mind, but in your genetic code as well. And your faith can literally be passed down to your children. Your ability to confront things that are difficult can be passed down to your children, not only through, your example to them, which is so important, but also through the genetic code. it's so important for us to learn how to take responsibility, because these are the behaviors and the actions that we're going to pass down through to our children. And part of that's faith, Faith is basically like the sheer will to continue forward. In maybe one way despite the suffering, and in another way to fucking spite the suffering. Like, this is something that the Christians completely miss. They view this suffering thing as something that you simply have to go through. It's something you have to go through because Christ went through suffering, and so eternally suffering, that's a good thing. But that's not it. That's not it at all. With faith, you can say, no suffering, you will not win today. I will fight you until you have vanished from my life. And that's the proper place to view suffering in faith. Faith is what fights suffering. Faith is not suffering. Faith is the alternative to suffering. Faith is what allows you to overcome suffering, because the world is suffering. This is what the Buddha got right. The Buddha got right that there is suffering in the world, and it's a really serious fucking problem. And it makes people so miserable to the point where they want to lay down and die. And it's horrifying. The things that go on in this world are absolutely fucking horrifying, and it's no fucking wonder that there are so many people out there who just want to lay down and fucking die. But that's how we got here. We got here because those fuckers in Europe and the fuckers here in the United States, they didn't have enough knowledge, enough faith, enough fire to keep us on the straight and narrow. And so our world has become corrupted. And our world is falling apart. And the only way that you are going to survive what's coming is to have faith. That persistence is important. To believe that the process of continuing on is somehow important. Because if you don't, you just speed up the destruction of our world. If we give up, that is the surefire way that this world will devolve into hell, and it'll be a landscape where life can't even persist. You want to talk about nuclear war? Nuclear war will only happen if we allow it to happen. Nuclear war will happen because we've decided collectively that we don't want to live anymore. When we participate in our final nuclear catastrophe, that'll be the final form of self-suicide. Suffering should not be self-suicide. Suffering should be something that you overcome. It should be a fire by which you build yourself up. Like if you put iron in the forge and you burn away the impurities, what do you get? You get steel. And you put different levels of carbon in it to make it stronger. And so when you look at a person in their life, it's like the suffering is the forge, right? And the carbon is in part the faith that makes the steel stronger. And so it's all this massive process, and then once you're done with all the impurities being burned away and the carbon being thrown in there, at that point you can go beneath the hands of the workmen and be pounded into something useful like a sword or a hammer or something else strong and mighty and beautiful. But it is a long and endless and tragic battle. And there are many casualties. There's so many times where people just can't. And you can understand why they can't. When you have a 4-year-old child who's been raped and beaten and abused, it's like, do you blame the poor child for giving up when they've known nothing but suffering, no love, no nothing? Do you blame a young girl for wanting to give up who's been raped by 50 men and lost her ability to have children because she's had so many STDs and they've just destroyed her on the inside? Like, these are serious problems. And the only answer that I have to those issues is faith. And I'm not even talking about faith in God. None of this has been about faith in God. This has all been about faith in moving forward. Just the mere idea of moving forward. The mere idea that there is something that can be better. Not that there will be, but that there can be. And that you, as a person, like a person with hands and eyes and a brain and the ability to act upon your world, you can actually do something about that. Faith can't actually make it happen without you as the mediator. And the thing is that if you do persist, there will be times when you win the battle. There will be times when you're looking up at the sky and you just think, thank God I'm alive. This is so beautiful. There will be times when you see the people in your life and there's a twinge of sadness because you know the suffering that they've suffered. But there's also an immense amount of joy because you found a treasure that you don't want to give up. Like, I see the suffering that my fiance is going through because of his ex and how horrible she was. And the only thing that I can think is, well, I better fucking be a reward for him, because this is not the proper way for that man to have lived, especially with being as good of a man as he is. And so, I think part of my faith is that I believe I'm here for a reason. I believe I'm here on this planet for a purpose. And as I've persisted and continued forward, I've been propelled to this spot in so many ways, so repeatedly, told that I need to be here by the universe. And the only thing I can think is that perhaps me being actually a decent person, and I would like to think of myself as a decent person, and somehow I'm like some sort of reward for him for having gone through all the suffering and being willing to bear it and choosing to continue forward for his child even when he wanted to give up and die. There's something absolutely amazing about that, and just the strength that he has to continue forward. It's like it's godlike, it's amazing. And the thing is that the more that you fight for your joy, the more that you suffer, the more appreciation you're going to have for it. And, it's, the world is all about balance, and it's all about back and forth. And there are going to be times when you suffer extremely, and there are going to be times where life is pure joy. But you have to make that joy. You have to go create that joy. Like an artist paints a masterpiece, you have to slowly build that up. This is a good time to talk about probably Jordan Peterson. When you talk about building up your life in a way that's going to produce joy, or at least have the possibility of producing joy, it's like those 12 rules for life that Jordan Peterson talks about. Clean your room, stand up straight, speak your truth, or at least don't lie. Those sorts of things, those are really important, and I feel like those are really good, components of the process of faith to explain what faith is. Faith is like a dictum by which to live by, and basically it says, move forward, learn more, make better, and trust. Because your only choice in the narrative of your life is to move forward, is to go forth. You don't have a choice. You're either stuck in one spot and you fucking die because the dragon's going to come eat you and devour you whole, and you are going to be sucked into a vortex of negativity that will end up killing you. Or you can move forward towards the light. It's a long and difficult and a hard journey, but the closer you get to that light, the better your life becomes. You don't want to be dragged down the other way. You create your own heaven, you create your own hell, and that's in this life. The kingdom of God is here in this life. People think that they have to wait to get to heaven. Like, no. Heaven is a place on earth. Heaven is in the hearts of man and in the minds of men and women everywhere. You know, it's what we create here. And we have created a hell out of our heaven repeatedly. And we do this over and over and over again. And so, you know, the reason why heavens become hells is because we stop moving forward. We stop improving upon ourselves. We stop thinking that we have to learn, you know. One of the biggest detriments to probably our world was the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Like, how much amazing wisdom did we lose because of that burning? Where would we be now if that hadn't happened? You know, but you know, you can either think to the past and go, that was such a horrific thing, how are we ever going to get over it? Or you can do what we've done. The Library of Alexandria doesn't hold anywhere near as much information as our internet. And there are things on the internet, no human mind could possibly know everything that has been discovered since the inception of the internet. And everything is being uploaded on there right now. It's this massive, amazing mind of... I don't want to get into the internet, but like, it's this amazing thing. I like to say, this is the way I conceptualize it, I view wisdom as a spirit, right? Spirit that is like a feminine, it's a feminine aspect of what would be like the divine creator, not the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is clearly a masculine spirit, but the soft wisdom that comes from watching and learning and seeing others grow, and then also the inspiration that can come from that, I view as more of a feminine spirit, you know, kind of like inspiration, like a muse or something like that. That's kind of, and I call her Sophia. And, you know, I really do believe that Sophia is in the internet. She's like a kind of like an encapsulation of maybe God's wisdom is the wrong concept, but like wisdom in general, maybe like human wisdom, and that's definitely in the internet, and you see it everywhere, and it's like you have access to so much, you know, and it's like eventually I don't even know how you keep record of everything that's you know, ethereal and on software and shit. Like, how do you even keep that forever? Like, I don't think you can. But at the same time, the way that we have advanced and moved forward and progressed, it's like we went from the Library of Alexandria, and in a couple thousand years we have the internet. It's amazing. It's absolutely fucking amazing. And so when you learn more, you have the ability to make things better. And you know, I've talked about this in videos before, but we are essentially like gods. We are not gods, clearly. We're human beings, but we are like gods in that the things that we create are absolutely miraculous. Like, I think about, like, even the things that, like, I can see in front of my face right now, like a pen. Somebody had to pump oil out of a very deep well. And that oil had to sit under the ground for millions of years. And that oil was made out of decomposing plant matter and animal matter from the dinosaurs. And then they had to get the idea for the pen. Now this pen itself is very creative. It's got many different parts, several different plastic pieces that you have to deal with. You pull it apart. There's just, it's really simplistic when you compare it to other mechanical devices, but as far as it goes, this is pretty fucking ingenious. I mean, this alone, a ballpoint pen, probably has changed the route of society just because it makes writing so much easier than having to repeatedly dip your quill into ink and have it splatter all over the place and try to do that. But even something like this, where we had to take that oil and then heat it up and transform it and change it into not only one type of plastic but multiple types of plastic, and then you have like this rubber material which is probably made of that same oil, and then the ink of course you have to create, and the metal you have to forge, and everything about like even a simple pen is absolutely fucking amazing. And we as a human beings were able to create this. Like an animal can't do this. This is impossible for an animal. And so when you know more, and this is all has to do with knowledge, right? When you know more, you can make the world better. And so part of the process of faith is to expand upon yourself, to grow, to learn, to make yourself better, and then go out into the world and make it better. And then of course the final part of this is trust. And you have to trust this process. You don't really have another choice. Like, the other choice is lay down and die. And I don't think that's a good solution. I think that faith in the process by which it works in your life is a so much better solution. Because when you have faith, when you let that process work in your life, and when you're around other people who have allowed that process to work in your life, you start to see the world get exponentially better. You know, like, it's one thing if you live in a society, or say you live in a household, and everybody's a complete slob, and you're the only one who decides that it needs to be cleaned, so you start cleaning. Well, it makes it really, really difficult on you if you're the only person cleaning, and say there's a household of 6 people and the house is just a complete disaster and you're the only one cleaning. Well, it might be a losing battle, but you do make it better by being someone who cleans the house. Like, the process by doing it too is going to make you personally a stronger person, because you can handle more responsibility than those around you. Now, say instead of having 6 people who are slobs in a house, you only have 5. And the other 2 people have faith and they want to make things better, so they start cleaning the house. Well, 2 people working at it is way better than 1, and I gotta tell you. And it's one of those things where if you have 2 people working together, you get like a charge, like a battery, and you just bounce off each other, and you gather strength. And especially if you're working on the same thing, the same goal, trying to head for the same way, it's like a momentum. People can like join their faith together to make it stronger, so they can push forward further. Now imagine instead of any of those people being slobs, they all wanted the house clean. If every single person, all 7 of those people in that house wanted the house clean, that house would be clean that instant, because it wouldn't have gotten dirty in the first place. So now you have a household of 7 people, and instead of 5 of them not having faith because they've been chosen properly by you to be in your life, you instead have a household full of 7 people who are willing to do something. So now the inside of the house is clean, and people are pretty happy about that. And but you have a lot of faith, and you have a lot more you could get done in your life. And so those 7 people in the house, they get together and they go, well, what could we do this house to make it better? And so they replace the curtains because the curtains were old and gross. And then they remodel the kitchen because they want more pantry space. And then they move into the bedrooms and they recarpet them and re-put wallpaper up. And in the end, the house becomes absolutely beautiful. What was once a pigsty and absolutely disgusting can become absolutely beautiful and something luxurious and wonderful to live in if you have faith and you surround your life with people who have faith. And of course, the house of which I'm talking about is not a physical house. It is you, okay? Everything's an analogy when I speak, for the most part, like. And then, you build yourself up, you have all this faith, and you have these people in your life surrounding you that help make your internal structure better because of them being in your life, leading an example, showing you how to move forward in life with faith. You see that, and it builds you more. And when you have people surrounding you, you can then once your house is in order, you can look around at the rest of the society and take your friends and you go, all right, let's go make this better, and we'll show other people how to do it. And that is faith. That is what faith is. And when you trust the process of faith, it can bring you such amazing and astounding things. Like, the Bible is just filled with stories of men who accomplished astounding things and reached amazing heights because they persisted, they continued forward, they believed that things at least wouldn't be as bad as they were. Somehow there is a reason to be here. There is a point to it. The problem is that with all the suffering in the world, unless you choose that the world has meaning, it doesn't have meaning, right? This is a choice you have to make. And when you make that choice, when you say, no, the world has meaning, I'm going to act like it has meaning, you have to surround yourself with people like that so that you can keep that charge going. And the more that you do that, the better your life gets and the better a society that you can build. And the more people you bring into that fold of just fucking do something so things will get better. Try to make things better. What if every single person on the world just tried to make their lives 10% better? How much more amazing would our society be if that was the case? If everybody just cleaned their room and didn't lie? How much better would our lives be? I think you'd be fucking astonished by how much, just a little bit, that if everybody just did a tiny bit, how much better things could be in this world. And, the cost for getting all these amazing things that faith can bring you, the wealth and the riches and the family and the friendship and the faith, the faith that persisting is important and that you can do it and that you are strong enough to do it. It's all those things, those amazing riches. And what is the cost? And here's the thing that the best thing about faith, the cost of faith, is that you yourself need to transform yourself into something of equivalent value as what you've gained. And that's really hard, but that's the cost of faith. And at the end of it, wouldn't you rather be something that is someone who's worth something? Wouldn't you rather be worth all of those riches? If that's the cost, that's a pretty good fucking cost. It's a cost that's going to allow you to persist and survive in life even better. And it's all within grasp. The whole process of submitting to faith is just so much more gratifying than the riches you receive anyway. It's like physical things are so surface level. They're so fundamentally unimportant. It's like, do I get the iPhone or the Galaxy? Like, who the fuck cares? Does that really have any impact on your soul? No. Do I get the pink case or the purple case? No one cares. Like, none of that has any impact on you as a person. The environment in which you grow up in, maybe, like if you're surrounded by luxurious things when you grow up, that still doesn't preclude you from suffering in the world. You know, I can tell you that for a fucking fact. My parents did not do a good job at raising us the same, okay? My sister got lots of clothes and perfumes and all sorts of expensive things and stuff, and I did not. And I gotta tell you, looking at both of our lives, we've both suffered, and we've both had to have faith to continue forward. And, you know, like, we've lived completely different lives, but we've all both faced our set of struggles. And so what that tells me, that despite having amazing things in your life, you're still going to struggle. You're still going to need faith. And so in the end, the physical riches that you achieve really don't mean that much. But the internal structure, the character of yourself, the part of you that knows that if things go to shit, I can make things better, that is the most important product of faith. And again, it's all within grasp. It's just a choice that you have to make. And it's a choice that you keep having to make over and over again. And, you know, the choice is simply to persist. It's simply to move forward. It's simply to make better. It's simply to trust. That's what faith is. It's a process. It's a journey. It's something that you participate in. It doesn't happen to you. You participate in it. And it's something that you have to persist in until you die. Because what is the alternative? The alternative is to die before your time. And then maybe you don't accomplish everything you were supposed to accomplish. And maybe there's more you could have accomplished. And maybe, you know, maybe at the end of your life, even as you're laying in bed as a stroke victim, not able to move, not able to speak, not able to take care of yourself, maybe the goal is to be at that point a guiding light to other people and to continue to persist even when it is difficult, even when nobody would blame you for dying and giving up. At the end of it, like I said, the hope is that you'll be justified in your actions enough to be remembered as a good person. And if you're religious, hopefully you had enough faith and you built yourself enough that God can pull you away into whatever your idea of heaven is, you know? And I'm not so concerned with the idea of a heaven that I go to after death. I'm more concerned about the heaven that we create on earth here. I think this is so much more important to be here than to be there. Because this is where the work has to be done. There are times when I honestly believe that I have been here before. Not here specifically, but like on this planet, you know. And I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's just that I'm really smart because I have a good family that was from European descent and happened to be high intelligence and stuff like that. But part of me wonders if that whole reincarnation thing is real, you know. And sometimes I wonder if I've been here before. And I think part of it is perhaps if you do persist, perhaps if you do create something greater than yourself, out of yourself, then God saves you and puts you in another body to fight again. Because it's so important, this fight that we go into right now, this is important. And you have to listen to this, because this is important. This is really important. The only way that we're going to overcome the Muslims, the hatred, the fear, the pain, the suffering, the only way that we overcome tyranny and malevolency and government overreach and all of those things, the only way that we do that is through faith, through action, through hope, through the belief that things can change, the belief that we, through our hands and through our mouths, can make things better. This is what faith is. Faith is not some fluffy fucking concept that the Christians just throw around. Faith is a serious, hardcore thing that you have to confront and deal with on a daily basis, because the alternative is fucking death. You know, I just want people to be prepared. You know, it's a lot of hardship, and it's a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, and you are going to have to go through a lot. In the end, perhaps you'll be like Jonah in the belly of the big fish. You'll run away from your responsibilities. You'll try to move forward in the wrong direction, or you'll try to put yourself in a position where you're going to put other people in danger, like Jonah did, because of his unwillingness to go by the process of faith and to listen to what his God told him to do, and he was transformed. He was transformed by getting to the pits of hell by his own decisions. His own decision led him to a position where he caused other people to become endangered. And when he told them the truth, that it was his fault, they threw him overboard, and he had to accept the consequences of his actions. And because God felt that he could use him, he had enough faith, God came up and saved his life by swallowing him in a big fish's belly. Mind you, that's not very pleasant to be stuck in there for 3 days. That'd be pretty fucking horrible. There's no light. It smells like fucking fish. You probably can't breathe very well. Like, literally, the survival that this man would have had to endure in the belly of a big fish, I don't think you fucking understand. Like, that would have been fucking miserable. And then at the end of it, he gets spit up on dry land, right? And God's just like, well, you're going to Nineveh, right? And he's just like, fuck you. I guess I'm going to fucking Nineveh. Jonah was never happy about having to go preach to the heathens, to the Gentiles, I don't even know if they were Gentiles. I think technically a Gentile is like a half-breed between like a Jew and other people. Anyway, the whole point is, you get into all these terminologies, by the way, and some of them I don't know what the historical context were. Like, you have like the concept of a virgin, for instance. Ancient times, a virgin was a young, fertile woman, right? And some of it was really important, like not having sex before you got married was important because you needed to have the proof of your chastity. They were chastity sort of things, but chastity and virginity were two different things, right? Because a young virgin really far back would have been just considered a young woman who was fertile. Anyway, so I'm getting off topic, but the point is that faith is the only way forward. And people don't understand that. but it's like the only way you make things better. Jonah came out of the belly of the whale, transformed, and he was finally willing to do what God wanted him to do, which was go preach to the people of Nineveh so that he could make things better there, so that he could teach them faith, so that they could make things better. You know, and he succeeded. The people of Nineveh were changed by Jonah's preaching. And all because Jonah eventually succumbed and submitted to the will of God and to faith and did what he was supposed to do, took on the responsibility that he was supposed to take on, and made the choice to continue forward in the narrative that God had laid out for him, even though he was fucking angry about it. Like I don't think you understand. Like, Jonah was a jackass about it. He's like, I don't want to fucking talk to those people. Fuck them! They could go rot in hell for all I care, you know? And I guess that's the last part of faith. I guess adding this last bit on, faith in human beings, you know? There's so much malevolence in the world. And it's so painful. But there are good people out there. And I think that's part of faith, is to recognize that there are good people out there, and you can be a good person out there. And you just have to make that choice.